Good afternoon. I'm Julie Thompson, Executive Director of PACTV, and today we're having a COVID-19 update with the town of Pembroke because now we have version 2.2 of opening, and I'm joined by the health agent Lisa Cullity, and we're going to talk about all things reopening. So Lisa,
Yes.
have at it. What's the latest?
Oh, goodness. I feel like we just have so much to cover in so little time, Julie. So phase 2.2 has just started, and everyone will remember the governor announced that on Friday, and it went into effect this Monday. And that does allow for some inside dining seating, and that does allow for nail salons and some other personalized services to open up and start operating. Obviously, all of these still require the facial coverings that are required in all workplaces. Obviously, the restaurant. Well, what does this mean? What is?
Oh dear, you're freezing.
Oh dear.
Yeah, you're freezing a little bit. Your connection, your
Yes.
bandwidth is a little bit low.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a shame. Let me
Oh,
just double check
That's
that.
disappointing. Now we see your
Well,
face.
we'll give it a shot.
I want to see your live face.
I know.
Well, I can hear you.
If we have to do volume only, I suppose we can do that.
We could
but
do
let's
that.
give this a. Let's just refresh that.
Okay.
Do a little happy
There you are.
refresh.
Okay.
So again, the personal services have come back online, which is of course so important.
Yeah. Why don't we just, for some reason,
your refresh helped at
yeah.
all.
Let's just stick with your picture,
Let's do
Lisa.
that. Start again. There. Hopefully
Control
that
room. Why
freshens
don't we
up
do
everything.
Julie and Lisa together on the screen?
So the idea being that the personal services come back online with the precautions, and the restaurants, it's the same rules we're familiar with outside, Julie. It's just we're going to bring those inside. We're going to bring those same restrictions, 6 foot apart. You need to be seated. You need to be having your cocktail and your food. You need to be wearing a mask when you're not seated if you're going to move about or go to the ladies' or men's room. And so it's basically all the same things we've been doing outside. We're just going to bring them inside.
Okay. I did ask you a question before we went on air about the restaurants that were able to open outside because they had the space and they created their little outside environments, and good for them. Were most of them. Some of the restaurants simply couldn't, and now they can open with the inside only because maybe they don't have room to have people outside. Is there anything special that those restaurants have to do since they haven't already opened for outside dining? Lisa, you there? Sorry, we are having a real problem today with bandwidth with joining Lisa. She will be back, and we will.
Okay.
Okay, there you are. You're back.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Let's see if that holds this time. How sad.
Did you hear the question? The question was for restaurants that had not been able to open with outside dining and now can with inside.
Yes. So it's going to be all the same things we're already familiar with. We're just bringing them all inside. So it's going to be tables 6 feet apart. It is going to be, you need to remain seated when you have your mask off. If you need to get up and move about, you need to put your mask back on. Mm-hmm. You are going to see paper menus and disposable items, just like we saw outside, or the proprietor would then have to sanitize in between uses.
Yep.
Chances are very good you're not going to see condiments and those kinds of things on the table. You're going to need to request them since they're sanitized between parties. So basically, if anyone's been out to eat in the last few weeks since outdoor seating became a thing, that all those same things you're going to see indoors. And hopefully those that were challenged trying to create outdoor seating are going to be able to come inside and bring all that back so that some of the restaurants we've missed are going to be able to join us again.
Right. 2 other questions now. And I asked you this beforehand, a bar. A lot of people like to go to a restaurant, order their food, sit at the bar, watch sports. Clearly you can't do that. Can you do bar dining if you're social distancing?
So yes and no. So simultaneously. So what a bar can't do is line people up at the bar. Obviously that's not social distanced and that's not allowed. However, facilities with particularly small footprints are allowed to seat people at the bar for food, provided that those bar seats are 6 feet apart and provided that that bar is 6 feet apart from other tables. So whether or not bars or restaurants with bars in them, I should say, choose to take use of that, that's going to really depend on the owner's layout and how comfortable they are.
Okay. And if a restaurant has a large bar, can 2 people that live together sit together and then 6 feet and then another couple and 6 feet? You could do that?
Yes,
Okay.
people within the same household or party are always allowed to sit together.
Okay.
However, the same maximum we're familiar with outside of no more than six to a party is still going to apply.
Okay. And I know there's kind of a social etiquette here about not spending too long in the restaurant so the restaurants can
Mhm.
get as many patrons in as possible. Can you speak to that a little
Sure.
bit, just about how that's kind of common courtesy at
Sure.
this point?
Yeah, there's a few things of etiquette that I think most people should keep in mind when going out to eat. The idea of just sitting and having cocktails all night should really be off the table. For one, it's not allowed. Remember, these restaurants are open as food providers under the emergency orders, not as a bar or place to hang out. Certainly, hanging out, playing any kind of pool, darts, or anything else, that is not allowed at this time. And patrons need to have a certain sort of respect for the establishment. Many of these establishments have gone without their primary source of income for so long that many of them are reserving only for full dinners or
Hmm.
full meal service. Some of them have a minimum, and people are going to need to try to respect that. Certainly, if you want to go out for perhaps just appetizers and a beverage or something like that, you should just call ahead and make sure that establishment is able and willing to provide you that particular service. And do not be surprised. I've been out a couple of times since the orders have been relaxed, and many places, matter of fact, every place I've gone does have a dining limit of 2 hours. In other words, from
Okay.
the time you're seated till the time that you are requested to leave is going to be 2 hours or less, but 2 hours seems to be the popular number.
Okay, perfect. And the actual capacity in a restaurant will never exceed what it always was anyway, outside and inside. Is that correct?
Yeah. So a lot of people have asked that. They're like, well, what about now so many have invested all this money into this outdoor dining? Does that all go away? No, it doesn't.
Hmm.
The easiest way to explain this is what a restaurant cannot do is exceed its original capacity, whatever that number is. And there's two reasons for that. One's the fire number, and the other one is the actual liquor service evaluation. So a restaurant can't exceed its total capacity, but obviously most restaurants, with respect to social distancing, are not going to even come close to that
Right.
capacity. Therefore, maintaining both outdoor and indoor seating and staying under that number, that whatever that total number is very achievable. So we expect most restaurants that have invested in outdoor seating, we expect to see that at least through the summer, if not right up to the November 1st deadline for that special permit.
Okay, and two other questions. If a restaurant has a function room that's attached to it, can they kind of retrofit that as part of their restaurant?
Absolutely. Not only can they, we would encourage that. Obviously, large gatherings, most places that have a function hall, that function hall is specifically targeted for large gatherings. Those are not allowed right now,
Hmm.
sadly. So we actually would encourage a restaurant or a facility that has a large hall of sorts that can then space additional tables 6 feet apart and use that for additional overflow dining, provided that they want to provide the service. We would encourage them to do so. They absolutely can turn that space into traditional dining space.
Okay. And hours of operation. Let's say a restaurant used to be open from 4 to 10, and now they would really like to open at 11 a.m. and try to take advantage of the fact that people are dying to go back out to eat. Can they do that?
Sure. In Pembroke, anyway, and I'll speak only to Pembroke, but what I've found in also the surrounding communities is a simple phone call. Usually it's your office of the Board of Selectmen for the liquor, and it's your Board of Health. But I've found that the vast majority of boards of health and boards of selectmen or governing bodies are extraordinarily supportive of their restaurant community. And a simple phone call saying, I can only do this many people because I have to, do the 2 hours and the cleaning and the turnover, that expanding the hours of operation has not been an issue. And I
Okay.
also found many communities are adding in a live entertainment, usually acoustic or something of that nature, also added into the permits to help make the dining more pleasurable. I've seen that added in a lot of communities as well.
So that's no problem as long as that acoustic guitar player is social distancing, correct?
Yeah, that's a community by community, but in Pembroke, it's not an issue at all. And of course, yes, you've got to keep that guitarist or that nice singer safe too.
Okay. Now, before we go into the other things that are opening as of yesterday, what was your feedback from the phase one of this outside opening? The pluses, the minuses, the things we could have done different. What were our takeaways?
Sure. So thank goodness in Pembroke, it's been overwhelmingly positive. And the experiences I personally have had dining out in Pembroke and in other communities have been amazing. I've actually really enjoyed what is a much more unique experience than I have ever enjoyed before at different places. So the vast majority of people are taking advantage of it. They're supportive of their restaurants, and it's been wonderful. There are a few drawbacks. Some people are really disappointed they just can't sit and have cocktails. But I hope again people can be respectful that the restaurant needs to make the most out of the seating it has. There's been a little bit of pushback from people that would like to sit longer than 2 hours. Again, the hope is people would understand that that table needs to be turned over, and the cleaning process in between tables takes longer, meaning that restaurants losing additional time on that table. So certainly hoping they'll be patient there. Reservation processes. Seem to be a bit of a hiccup as well. Many people that are used to being able to walk up and get walk-up service from different establishments, that's been a little problematic from the public. And then the open air capacity alone, things flying around, breezy. Is there going to be weather?
Birds.
People are taking a little bit of birds.
Yeah, birds flying through your food, whatever.
Personally, I have not been assaulted by birds, but I have heard of a couple of incidences of that. But the potential for weather, of course, is an area of concern. So I think people do need to pay attention to that when making their arrangements to go and dine out. Of course, we've enjoyed nothing but extraordinarily hot and dry weather.
I know.
So it hasn't been too much of an issue. But of course, it could become one. So people need to be a little more cognizant of that when they're making their plans.
Okay, so it's not even the 1st of July yet. So we're looking at July. We're gonna go into this phase now where you have people inside and outside. August too. It gets pretty hot in July and August, so the outside dining might be not as lucrative as the inside dining. Is there any estimation of when we could have a few more people inside, or does that depend on the facts and figures as the governor sees them?
I think that's going to depend. The governor's made all of their decisions based on the facts and statistics we're seeing come in. I do not see the governor changing that. I think the density is the problem in any establishment. The minute you start putting people closer and closer together, the opportunity to spread germs among one another becomes more of a problem. I unfortunately think we're probably going to see this through the majority of the summer, this 6-foot rule of people staying apart. So I don't anticipate that changing too quickly. So hopefully restaurants can be a little more adaptive and use their space a little bit better to make the most of it, or at least that would be my hope for them.
Is there any way that a restaurant could have tables that are less than 6 feet apart but have plexiglass or something like that between them?
Yes. So yes, they can, but that gets expensive, and then you run into some building code and safety issues with that. How is it secured? How secure is it? How strong is it? That it would not fall on people. So there are ways to do it, but it does get very challenging very quickly. As far as using things unlike plexiglass, like other types of materials, obviously you could have fire code issues that are going to come into play. So all of those things are possible, but whether or not they're economically feasible remains a challenge.
Okay. I saw a picture of one restaurant, I think it was in New York City, that had the clear plastic hanging from the ceiling. It's very thick. You can see through it. It just hangs from the ceiling. It was, I don't know how it was put down on the floors, but it wasn't a permanent structure, and that seemed to have worked for them. So if somebody came to you and said, "Lisa, I want to try this," would you allow that to happen?
That would be a joint effort by myself, the fire department, and the building department. And in a situation like that, it's going to be a case by case.
Okay.
Is something like that possible? Absolutely. But that's going to have to be looked at as a case by case, so we can evaluate whether or not it works, in every scenario.
Okay, perfect. So that was the restaurants. What's the next biggest thing in your estimation that opened up this Monday, or the most popular?
So we have a bunch of things that came on. So there's personal services, nail salons, some manicures and pedicures are back on the table. I know many of the salons are booked back to back. And I've seen them doing an excellent job, separating. In other words, they're only using every other table, which of course is only creating more congestion for those personal services because they're only able to use about half of their normal seating. But the ones I observed were doing an amazing job keeping their clients safe. We have youth sports coming back online. We have 4 different organizations that have submitted applications to the town. Their plans are excellent. Parents and student athletes are going to have to be really patient in dealing with these organizations as they figure their way through the rules and how to keep the kids safe. My biggest advice to parents are talk to your kids about this. Talk to your child's coach. If you still have a problem with any of the issues, reach out to the leader of the organization and exhaust all those possibilities, before, getting upset, and understand that many of these people are unpaid volunteers that are doing their best to try to, give kids some fun outlets and avenues and keep them safe at the same time. And this is not easy.
Okay. Yeah, clearly this is not easy. Now, youth sports, do the kids have to wear masks?
So if the children can be over 6 feet apart, no. The challenge with youth athletics is obviously kids are kids, and kids are going to be running around and doing different drills. No games are allowed yet. And trying to control the incidental contact between players. And what I mean by that is, this kid's throwing a ball in one direction and that child is catching a ball from another direction, and they start running at each other, while they're chasing their respective sports ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that incidental closeness. So that is the real challenge is certainly if children are not going to wear facial coverings because they're expected to be 6 feet apart, is how to prevent those incidental contacts or incidental closeness of players. And that's going to be a challenge for coaches. Those groups of kids are supposed to be 12 or less. And that's the challenge there is how does a one adult individual maintain that level of safety. So
Okay.
that certainly is a challenging job.
Now, what about swimming? I know we have a number of really nice places in Pembroke where people love to go swimming in the summer. Are those going to be open?
Yes, they are. And of course, we're asking everyone to socially distant. And certainly with the hot weather, we're seeing people, kind of, I don't want to say crowd into those beaches, but we're seeing a fair number of people at those beaches. But what I saw the other evening, I'm just going to pick on Stetson Pond because I was there, that really warmed my heart is, yes, there was a lot of kids in the water, but the kids were kind of spaced out in the water, which made me really happy. And then while there were a lot of families there, what I saw a lot of families doing that I thought was so smart was they were almost tailgating in the parking lot using the back of station wagons, the back of pickup trucks, the back of SUVs with the tailgate sides open. And they maybe had a couple of beach chairs off the back of their SUV, and they had, maybe some blankets spread out, and they were spread out all over the parking lot. They were 6 feet apart. They were not right next to each other. Everyone made, a real effort to be parked away from each other. So they had their picnicking or sunning spot over by their vehicle rather than all crammed onto the beach. So my hat's off to those folks. What a good choice to keep them and their children safe, and not be all crowded up, yet all, try to use the water as safely as they could. So that was a wonderful thing to see.
That's great. Summer camps, summer recreation. Talk about those.
So our recreation department has applied to be open, and they have received a permit to do so. Again, those are going to be classroom sizes of 10 children or less. So that's going to severely limit how many children can take part in our town of Pembroke recreation department. They're going to have as many activities outside as humanly possible. They're going to have as many solitary group activities, meaning the child's only interacting with their sport ball of choice,
Mm-hmm.
in a fielded area with, the other kids in their 10-kid pod. But they won't be interacting with one another. There are a slew of crafts and rainy day activities that are inside with children at opposite ends of 6-foot tables. Again, no more than 10 kids to a group. Every child has an individual locker. The building is sanitized every night. And in between groups, there's a deep sanitization every weekend. So our rec department has taken the operating instructions very seriously and seems to have met it on every level. So we're really happy for them there.
Now, what about like YMCA camps, sleepaway camps? Do you think that's going to open at all this summer, or is that going to be kept closed?
They're saying yes. All the best indicators we have right now say that sleepaway camp is going to be a possibility. However, it's going to look nothing like sleepaway camp
Right.
looked in the past, which is really sad. Because there's not going to be a lot of kid interaction, and
Right.
that's really hard for the kids because that's part of the reason why they go to camp. I would imagine sleepaway camps, they're going to have at least half capacity or less so that they can socially distance the kids within cabins. I don't know what recreation is going to look like for them. I haven't seen any guidance on that, but there was talk that is going to be allowed in July. So as soon as I see the guidance, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. We only have one sleepaway camp here in Pembroke, and they had announced at the beginning of the summer that they would not be opening. So it's not a Pembroke specific issue, but for those that are looking at sleepaway camps elsewhere, I know New Hampshire is actively working towards it, and they want to see that occur in July, but it will look very different, than it has before.
Okay. Let's talk about gyms and personal training and that whole subject. And I have a question. There's no place on earth that you sweat more or breathe heavy more than at a gym. And it's really hard to be working out at a gym and wear a mask. So
Yes.
if you have one-on-one training, can you have it within a gym? Because some gyms are huge. What is the guidance on that?
So personal training was brought back online. So one-on-one training with a trainer is allowed at this point in time. As far as someone who's running a gym, depending on the organization of the gym, what is also allowed is outside training of groups of 10 or less. So let's say I'll pick on CrossFit. You wanted to run a CrossFit and your CrossFit is going to be outside with your coach putting you through different paces, or a boot camp, and there wanted to be a coach and nine clients working out, that would be allowed. And you would be socially distant and you would not share exercise equipment. That would be allowed. I've seen a lot of trainers get really creative, giving tasks at the beginning of the day or assigning workouts and telling the group to check in by the end of the day, that when and where and how did they complete their workout, and who could get the most creative with maybe a weight that was lifted, whether it be a rock or a bag of dog food. And I've seen a lot of creativity with those. So right now, one-on-one is fine indoors. Groups of 10 or less outdoors is fine. As far as opening gyms, that's still slated as a phase 3. And I have not seen any guidance on that as yet.
Okay. What about, and you probably don't know the answer to this, but I know so many parents are talking about this, school in September. How do we make plans for school in September?
Yes.
Can you speak to that at all? What are the options?
Incredibly challenging.
Yeah, what are the
it's
options?
incredibly challenging. It's incredibly challenging. And it's incredibly challenging on so many levels because the kids are in such close proximity. Because it is such a fabric of our society, especially with the vast majority of families having 2 income earners, that it's not just a question of school, it's a question of socialization for kids. It's a question of daycare so that parents can work. It fills so many roles that the idea that school is going to look different than we're normally familiar with it is really upsetting and really challenging to everybody. So right now, the loose template was 10 kids or less to a classroom. The loose template was they would do a week on, week off with each groups of kids. I don't need to tell anyone that's listening to this what an incredible challenge that would be for working parents, that they would be very difficult to overcome. I do think that the governor's decision is going to be data driven. I do think the Department of Education's decision is going to be data driven. And right now, as much as everyone really wants concrete answers, here we are, at June 23rd, trying to make a decision for the end of August, early September is going to be next to impossible. If the numbers keep dropping, I think we could see a return to normal schools with maybe some sort of cap on class sizes, but instead of a group of 10, a group of 20. I think the other challenges that's going to be really hard for people to hear is going to be whether or not athletics is going to be part of that new school regime. Obviously, things like wind instruments and choir is going to be very challenging to even begin to attempt to incorporate in a safe manner. So I think school in the fall, no matter what is done, is going to look very different than school looked like this past fall. But right now, the data suggests that the most extreme we're going to do is that 10 kid per classroom, week on, week off. I think that's the most extreme. I personally think if the data keeps moving the way it's moving, we're going to see something a little bit more relaxed than that. Hopefully, my hope would be 20 kids a classroom. Unfortunately, I think there are going to be programs that are not going to be able to be offered for safety, which is sad, but safety has to be the most important here. And I think that hopefully we will not have to do the week on, week off. I'm cautiously optimistic that if the data keeps trending how it's trending, that we're going to be able to do that.
That would be wonderful, and we'll have to see. Like you said, we have to be driven by the data in this. Library and Council on Aging. Talk about those 2 wonderful entities in our towns.
So case by case on those. Some libraries, if they have multiple spaces and rooms, are a little easier to bring back into service. So it's really going to depend on the library. Our library, for those that aren't familiar with it, is a wide open structure. That's going to be a lot more challenging. I expect when the library, they've been doing curbside, which has been very, very popular, curbside book service. I think when the library comes back online, it's going to be at a very reduced capacity, and they're going to be monitoring that and watching how many people are going to be allowed in or not. Council on Aging is even more challenging.
Yeah.
This is the number one harmed demographic by this disease, and it's hard on two fronts, because the whole point of the Council on Aging and the groups that are offered and the services that are offered are to bring seniors out of the home and to stop having them be isolated and not have them feel all alone. And here we are in the middle of a pandemic where we're asking people to isolate. And not only are we asking people to isolate, we're asking particularly those over 60 and those with pre-existing health conditions to isolate even more because of the danger they're in. So those services are going to be some of the last. I think councils on aging might start doing small groups back in, maybe offering a certain section of the clientele. You may come on Monday, and a different section, you may come on a Tuesday, and you may come on a Wednesday, so on and so forth, so everyone can at least get out one day of the week. And many of these people are people that were used to being there 5 days a week. But I think in order to keep the numbers safe and in people socially distanced and in small groups, I think they're going to have to start with very small numbers of people coming in at a time. And I think they're going to have to start with people that need essential services first, and doing one-on-ones with those folks, and then slowly starting to mix in some of those other social gatherings that used to occur.
Okay, great. Now, two things that are coming up on our calendar is town meeting is scheduled for Tuesday night, the 28th of July. Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, actually, thanks to you, Julie, and PACTV, as well as the town of Kingston. The town had its program set up. We had our plan in place. And it was a wonderful opportunity to take a look at what the town of Kingston was also doing. And we were able to draw more good data from that. And here's the beautiful part. Kingston's plan and Pembroke's plan looked exactly the same for the most part. Some slight tweaks based on the technology that PACTV was able to bring to the table. So we were able to make a couple small changes to make it a little more comfortable. And that's going to be wonderful. The problem as we move into the summer is obviously our friends, the mosquitoes, are back. And Triple E is unfortunately beginning to make itself known. So that's not helpful to our scenario. I know that the town did pass a reduction in quorum. I'm sorry, I don't know the number off the top of my head. So the quorum will be reduced. So we'll have to see how that impacts attendance. But we right now have a pretty solid traffic flow plan, organization of persons plan that should be able to work when the selectmen are ready to move forward with town meeting. We should be able to keep everyone that attends there very safe. There is one, I don't want to say caveat, but there's one exception that people need to think about. That certainly if they do have a pre-existing health condition, certainly if they do not feel well, they should not be attending town meeting. That's the first and foremost. But for people with pre-existing health conditions, for people with health concerns, for people that are over 60, you do need to think carefully. And I hate saying that to anyone, because I think involvement in your local town government is so important, but so is your health. So people are going to have to weigh that very carefully. Certainly facial coverings are going to be required. For those that cannot wear facial coverings, they're going to be isolated away from the rest of the group. People are going to have to, I would hope, be very respectful and very professional, and understand that we and every town for that matter would need to move through town meeting as expediently and safely as possible. And I'm not saying rush through town meeting. I want to be clear when I say that. I'm not saying rush. I'm saying eliminate unnecessary, activity and dialogue that is not contributing to the town meeting, for the purposes of not having a large group of people gathered together for any longer than is absolutely necessary. So I feel pretty confident in our plan. And I know Kingston ended up postponing their town meeting again, but I have to say their plan is very similar to ours. So I have a lot of confidence in that plan as well. I think both of them will work out, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do that sooner rather than later.
Right. And again, as always, you should go to town meeting already armed with a ton of information. That's not the place to go to learn about what's on the warrant. I mean, and I'm sure that you, the group, Sabrina, the town manager, the town moderator, you're all going to have some kind of sessions where we will learn about all the different warrants that are on there, and even if you're putting some of them together, and which a lot of towns are doing, just for the expediting of the town meeting. And of course, PACTV will be pleased to help you with that. And also in town meeting,
Thank you.
No problem. To know that there will be an overflow in the cafeteria, I think is your plan.
Yes.
Because we already have.
We're going to have the regular space, and then we're going to have overflow to the cafeteria. Having said all that, though, neither Kingston nor us nor any town has unlimited capacity.
Correct.
So certainly everyone's going to have to consider that as well. That there is the possibility, if there was a very large turnout, we might not be able to move forward. But hopefully, we have the right number of people in Pembroke. We generally get somewhere between 150 and 200. We can accommodate that number safely. And to your point, I love the point you're making of try to be educated before town meeting. Yes, everyone that has warrant articles to be considered at town meeting will be working with PACTV to get some of that information out and to answer some of those questions, so that if people can just take the time to either watch the broadcast on cable, watch it on the internet, so that they are informed. And certainly if you have questions, this is something that people don't realize. Let's say someone's reading the warrant right now and you have questions. You can certainly ask those questions right now. You do not need to wait to town meeting. Certainly if someone had a question on a CPC warrant article and they wanted to reach out to me and say, hey, what's up with this? I'd be happy to answer those questions so that people can feel more confident moving forward.
Absolutely. I totally agree completely. Okay. Any last words of advice? And when should we meet again to have another update?
I think that depends on the governor, our friend the governor, and when or not he lets us know that we need to do something different. I think, unfortunately, we have to play it by ear. We have to be really the correct news media team on the spot, Julie. So thank you for being so flexible. And you have been so wonderfully supportive and flexible. And not just you, your whole team at PACTV has been amazing in support of the communities and helping us get out this information. I can't thank you and your team enough for that. But also, as far as, takeaways from all of this, the people that I see, I hate to use the word surviving, managing COVID the best, are those that are willing to be patient and flexible. And if you are willing to be patient and flexible in your dining experience, if you're willing to be patient and flexible with your child's athletic experience, if you're willing to be, patient and everything else with your experiences that are going to be very different with every organization you encounter, every business, the people that are willing to do those things are actually enjoying the return, to some of the things we've missed. You're actually having some new experiences when it comes to dining. You're actually having some new experiences when it comes to some other things. That those that just take a breath and stop walking through the doors with extremely high expectations are the people that are happier.
Right.
So I would say, when in doubt, everyone's going through a lot. Certainly the business owners, I have been through so much. I have stories that would break your heart, and they're doing the best they can. So that if we can all just be a little more patient with each other and everything else, I think that would help a lot.
Right. And buy local whenever possible. Support your local businesses
absolutely.
whenever possible. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Lisa, thank you so much. We have date stamped this because this was the information as of today. And if you want to watch anything from Pembroke that we've had over the last 3 months, go to pactv.org/Pembroke. I've been joined by Lisa Cullity today. Thank you so much, who's the health agent of the town of Pembroke. Thank you, Lisa. We'll have you off again as soon as we have some more information to update. So for now, this is Julie Thompson. Okay, this is Julie Thompson from PACTV saying, have a good day.